way listings come to market is changing, and the agents who are winning, they're not rushing the process, they're strategizing it. They're controlling the timing, eliminating inefficiencies, and setting their clients up for stronger results. Because this isn't about limiting exposure, it's about sequencing it, building anticipation, gathering insight, creating demand before a listing ever hits the open market. The agents who understand that don't just list homes, they build momentum. Today, I'm joined by Dennis Cestra, my cousin and president of Pennsylvania Howard Hanna.
Thanks for having me. Congrats on the success of the show.
Oh, thank you. Well, we'll see how today goes. And two of our top producing real estate agents from Pittsburgh, Dina Castillo, joining us from our Mount Lebanon office, and Jennifer Waters from our Sewickley office. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Good. This is fun. I'm excited to talk about HannaList and Find It First. But first, the most important thing, I want you to introduce yourselves and tell us how you got into the business. So, Jennifer, why don't we start with you?
So my story's a little sad. My parents actually had a house fire about 9 years ago. Were kind of despondent, destroyed by it, and needed the oldest child to help them pick up the pieces. So housing was a concern. So we were trying to find them a new house. I was scouring all the websites. Hanna First would have been great at that point. Looking for, different housing options. I was making Excel spreadsheets with all the different attributes in it. Found them a great agent who now is with Howard Hanna. We went through, all the different houses. I'd pick them up and take them to the showings. And during that time, I was, pointing out things that were wrong with the house, pointing out things that they would like about the house. And that agent and my parents both said, "Have you ever thought about doing this? You might have an eye for this." So I got my real estate license. I had 4 kids, but my youngest was just starting preschool. So I thought, okay, I might have a few hours a week to do this. Started as a hobby, to be honest. I was just part-time for a while. I got separated in 2020 and decided to bet on myself. And so I take care of my family now. So
that's an incredible story.
Yeah.
You bet on yourself and you're winning.
Yep,
Love
exactly.
That. Love that.
Yeah.
Dina?
So, I grew up in Central PA, Hollidaysburg, Altoona, that area. And I trained to be a professional ballerina, like my whole childhood, early adulthood. That's what I did. I danced professionally for the Los Angeles Ballet. I lived in New York for some time. And my husband was also a former dancer. So he actually got a job with the Pittsburgh Ballet Theater. That brought us to Pittsburgh about 10 years ago. So he did that. And I said, you know what, let me try something totally new on a whim. Just got my real estate license. And it was so funny because I didn't know anyone. I was super new to the area. And I saw Howard Hanna signs everywhere. So I said, you know what? Let me just call Howard Hanna and see if they'll give me a chance. And Patrick Gray, who was the manager at the time, really just bet on me. And I really dove in head first and fell in love with it. Yeah. And then I was with Howard Hanna. This was 10 years ago. I was with Howard Hanna for about 3 years. And then I partnered up with Lauren Coulter. We took some time away from the brokerage, tried some other places, and then recently came back for, many reasons. And it was the best decision. We're so happy to be back. It's been sort of a homecoming for us. And we're just so excited about the direction of the company and programs like HannaList and Find It First. We're super excited about.
Well, welcome back to the family. We're happy to
you.
have you. You two have such interesting stories. I wish I was that unique. Yeah.
Well, I'd ask you, but I know yours.
Yeah,
we don't know.
No need to do that.
Really cool. Like that one of my favorite things about doing this podcast is learning about people's background and how they get into it, because everyone sort of has their own story, obviously, and it's all they're all unique. I mean, a ballerina. I would not have known that.
Yeah.
But very cool. If we do a Howard Hanna Dancing with the Stars, I know who I'm picking.
I'll do it.
Yeah. But they're all unique, and it's funny. Most people say I started this off as a hobby, or I started it off not was going to do a few hours a week, like you said.
Yeah.
And they end up supporting their family and being the true breadwinner in the family, if that's we're allowed to say that. But it's pretty cool stories to hear from people like you. So thank you for sharing, and I think all the viewers will if we have some viewers, they'll be impressed and think it's pretty cool. Yeah. So Dan, let's start with you. You got a front row seat to this HannaList and Find It First.
Yeah.
How's it sort of changing the way that the market here and Western Pennsylvania?
Well, I think just overall too, as an industry. So we're in sales. We sell a product, right? We sell people's houses. And I think a lot about marketing, sales in other industries, try to bring it to our real estate business. And I could not think of, and the comments can type in or correct me if I'm wrong, I can't think of another business that sells a product that launches the product, launches their good or service or whatever they create, launches it, and then creates the marketing, and then runs the advertising campaign. We're the only one I can think of that brings our product to market, welcomes it, opens it up to all of our consumers, and then creates the marketing, then implements the strategy. I mean, if you were going to sell a car, if you were going to sell a shoe, whatever it is, you watch the Super Bowl, what are they doing? They're launching those new cars, and then 6 months later, they put them up for sale because they're creating urgency and demand. And that's what we're doing here, with really the Find It First program. HannaList is the platform in which we use, but Find It First in the strategic listing launch of our product is, how we're building that demand, how we're creating urgency. And like the two great stories, whether it was a house fire, whether it was coming to the city because of dance and being in the arts, everybody's home has a unique story to tell. And I think it's our responsibility as well as our pleasure to be able to tell that. And we can't tell it the same way every single time.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on point that you have to have a strategy.
Yeah.
And I think home sellers appreciate a strategy rather than just, I'm going to put it into the multi-list and, hope someone finds it and calls me, right? Or hope they call me at all, which leads me to an example. Had dinner a week or two ago with a couple, and they were asking me, we heard about this, HannaList, Find It First. They're not in the business; they're just friends of ours, and they said, how's it going? Like, what's the, and they've read the articles about like, is it limiting exposure? And I sort of explained the situation, said that if we put it directly into the multi-list without any of the strategy Dennis talked about, and it goes into Zillow, and someone finds the house, and then they call the agent who, like I said, who do you think they call? Well, they call the listing agent. No, they called the agent who signed up for that zip code.
Yeah.
And they I couldn't believe it. Like, how could you, what do they know about the house? So, yeah. So one of the reasons we invited you guys on to talk about this subject, because you've both really leaned into the programs. So Dina, let's start with you. How does this create momentum for your listings?
So I think it's really exciting for our sellers. So just to kind of echo what Dennis said, we're not just taking photos and putting it into the MLS and you get a one-day launch and that's really it. That doesn't really benefit a seller because we didn't build up that momentum. We didn't slowly run, different sneak peeks and build that up. So if you're launching any new product in a store, same thing. You're going to educate the consumer on the product. You're going to put out teasers. You're going to explain what it is. You're going to build up a lot of momentum and excitement. So when you finally are able to get in the door or pick up the product, it flies off the shelves. So that's really exciting for our sellers. And when I'm going in to speak with people, we're talking sort of about this 3-step process. So we go into HannaList as an exclusive, and this is so you have time to start prepping your home. So the other thing I like is that sellers don't feel rushed. And we're able to start talking about their home to the other Howard Hanna agents, to people in the office, to maybe our buyers. And the seller has time to stage and maybe pre-inspect the home, make different repairs, get painting done. We have lots of time to take our photos and different video. And we're turning that around. And then kind of step 2 is we become a Find It First listing. So it is public facing, runhowardhanna.com. And it also syncs up to Rail Scout, which is the portal that we use for all of our buyers. So we're able to start putting on social media different sneak peeks. And we're building that up and building it up more. So when we're ready to go totally active in the MLS, we have a list of buyers ready to come in your home. You've had all of that great time to prep. Maybe we've gotten some feedback on price. So it's about really being prepared with marketing, with pricing, and with condition.
Awesome. Couldn't have said it better myself.
That
was good.
That was good.
That was perfect. And I'm gonna ask you. You talked about an example that you had.
Yeah.
I'm gonna ask you
Yeah.
that in a second. But let's go to Jennifer. So Jennifer, you mentioned this. We talked earlier about it as a dress rehearsal.
Yes.
Can you expand on that?
Yeah, so I think of very similarly, like this is a staged process, right? So you start them off by doing all the preparation, just like Dina said, we get painters in, contractors, we pre-inspect. Then we get to the dress rehearsal stage. That's whenever we kind of start to tease it out, whether I'm putting it on neighborhood Facebook pages or letting my own sphere know, kind of putting it on my social media, that sort of stuff. We're just kind of giving a taste of what's available. The dress rehearsal is the exclusive period. That's when buyers can come in. We're testing the house out, right? I'm trying to match it with people maybe already in my sphere that I know might have an interest in this neighborhood. This is when we can get feedback on pricing, condition, if there's anything we need to tweak before we take it live. I always think you get one shot at coming to market, and you want to make sure you have your best face on, right? So we've already worked out any kinks beforehand. We've already gotten feedback from real buyers or brokers. We have exclusive broker tour that all happens during the dress rehearsal period. So we look almost like we want to when we go to market, and we have a test period to try it out.
Yeah, I mean, I love the dress rehearsal.
It ties in with the ballet.
Yeah.
Ballet, exactly. Because who wouldn't do that?
Yeah.
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 I mean, we're doing this podcast for everyone, the closing table, and we sat down and talked a little bit
Right.
about what we were going to talk about, and and interests and things like that. You wouldn't just come out, sit down and do it without any preparation at all, and that's what it feels like we're doing now. We're preparing, we're strategizing.
Yeah.
Dan, do you have any other?
Well, to go back to your point with how sellers think something is launched and the interaction between when a listing is launched and it comes on market, and who is the one that's really that expert, who's that initial point of contact for somebody who's inquiring on that home. We know that the majority of the leads on a listing generally come in within the first 48 hours. So just like that show, the first 48 hours are imperative to not only getting the best condition or best terms and conditions, but getting the best price as well. And I think, like you said with your friends, I think it surprised a lot of sellers to know that, and it's nobody's fault. It's not a slight against anybody else. It's just how our industry has gone. And I think that is changing, and we're sort of leading the way in that, but that it's not the listing agent that is the initial point of contact. I don't know why I'm saying this on a podcast or not, but I tested it with one of the big portals recently. I inquired on 2 of our listings. I was talking to Dina about this the other day. And
Secret agent.
Yeah. And both of those listings, the people that I, requested a tour from, went to 2 agents that have not sold, and they do a lot of business, have not listed or sold a house in that zip code in the last 12 months. So, and at the same time, they were wanting to build a relationship with me, and they wanted to go to show me 2 or 3 other houses. They weren't 100% focused in on that house. They didn't know that neighborhood. I think that when somebody's looking to buy in a certain area, they want to have that expert. So whether it's that listing agent selling that house to somebody or not, I think to benefit the seller and to go back to the consumer experience of our sellers, we need to be having that initial point of contact. And that's one reason why we launched the HannaList platform and the Find It First approach, was to be able to create more opportunities. Yeah, it would be great to sell more houses and get more listings, but at the same time, we want to have a better consumer experience for our sellers, and we do that by being the initial point of contact when those buyers are coming in within the first few days.
Really good point. So Dina, you were talking before we jumped in here during our dress rehearsal. You were talking a little about an example of just success on this.
Yeah. So I had a listing last week. We changed it to the Find It First, and we got our public facing link. So what was really nice about it is I was able to take this link and share it on social media. So I put out a little sneak peek post on Instagram and basically said, comment Olympia for the link. And people were so excited about it. It got over 150 comments, 150 shares. I think people are excited about what they don't see yet and kind of what they can't have. So it just helps drive that momentum. And then it drove people directly to me. So people were clicking on my link and getting the info directly from the listing agent. That's
pretty cool.
Yeah. I think about when there's scarcity in the market, whether it's I love watches, right? And, certain watches have been, they actually strategically don't produce as many as they should to drive, a demand for it. Same thing with, wine, Jordan shoes. Those are all like asset classes now, just like real estate. But when those come out, it's not to like everyone all at once. It might get to that point, but it's a slow roll. There's a strategy behind it. And, that in itself creates value for whoever that seller is at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Jennifer, how has this impacted your relationship with other LOs or the LOs in the market or the other agents?
Yeah. So since we have a slower release and a more intentional time period of buildup, when I get those buyer leads from things like Dina said, putting it out there early, I get interest. We have the time then to get them pre-approved if they're not. If they've been thinking about it but are just more casual, now I've got that week or so prior to it hitting the MLS for me to help prepare them.
Mm-hmm.
I can hook them up with my LO in my office, get them pre-approved before it actually is even available to show or hit the market.
Which is important.
Yeah.
I mean, the just like the seller has to have a dress rehearsal, or the seller has to have a strategy, a buyer has to have a strategy too. And waiting for something to pop up on the internet.
Then they're scrambling.
And then scrambling is not a strategy.
Jennifer, Dina shared earlier that, she just recently strategically launched the listing and got 120 comments. A lot of people that were looking to see it and, had interest in it. Have you seen the same interactions, and, what are you doing specifically to market? Because I know everybody does a little bit differently, but to create your own launch.
So one of the steps that I use is to kind of tease it out on social media. So I belong to a number of different community groups where I sell. I have a listing coming this week in Bellevue. So I put on the Bellevue Facebook Moms group just a teaser, front-facing photo, exterior of the house, saying coming soon in Bellevue. One of the biggest houses in Bellevue for sale. Let me know if you have any interest. Just since yesterday, I have 22 different comments asking for information. I asked them to DM me, so I've got now their contact information, and I've been able to send them then the Find It First link, and just ask if they had any more info and follow up. So now I have 22 buyer leads, 22 people I know are in the market for a house in this area that I'm able to take off of this one listing and launch into other sales.
It's amazing, we're in a business that, the public's going to tell you if what you're doing is working or what you're doing is not working based on their reception of it, right? Whether it's a house, whether it's a price, whatever it is. And from what you both have just shared, that's almost 150 interactions within the first 24 hours of, launching into Find It First. I think the public is telling us this is what they want,
And I will say
amazing.
my seller also, I didn't know it at the time, belongs to that same Facebook Moms group. And she called me raving about how great that was that I teased it out and how she's so excited that we already have interest. I already had a phone call for a showing pre-market. So,
and that's information I think sometimes like a seller might see how many views their home's getting or likes or saves, but like true qualitative interaction, I'm sure that makes them feel like you're really going above and beyond.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
And our competitors out there in the market, the only thing they can say is that we're limiting exposure, which is 100% the opposite for what you guys are sharing with me.
Yeah.
Yeah, the goal is to create a long list of people who are ready to go in there as soon as we're live. It's not to sell it off market. We want to get the most for the seller, so we want to prepare the home by going through the stages. So it's really ready to go. We've gotten price opinions, the condition is ready, the marketing's beautiful, and then when we hit, you have so many more people who already know and want to get in.
Yeah, you bring up a good point there, Duffy, because I do think that a lot of listings get just, if they're all just put in the same way, right? Then they get lost, right? And it's going to sell because we have scarcity in the market, but are you really driving, the best price? Are you really creating, an atmosphere for the best terms and conditions for the sellers? And like you said, obviously, consumers are seeing it. Like this isn't about limiting access or limiting showing. This is about really being able to put our listings in a different light than our competitions, and I think that's healthy in a market, right? So,
and you guys have really leaned into this, and you're finding success. Obviously, if one of the things I find for people in general, not just real estate agents, people in general, is change. Change can be hard, So if you're used to doing a certain thing a certain way for the past 10 years or whatever, so what's your advice to agents who might be listening to this and saying like, I hear what they're saying. Jennifer's making a lot of sense. Dina's making a lot of sense, but it's different than what I've always done. What's your advice to them, either one of you or both of you, please?
Well, I know I've made some adjustments to my timeline, right? Like I always had a set, 2 weeks prior to the launch, we do this. Well, I definitely have extended it a little bit longer. And it's intentional. And I make sure that the seller knows that we're not just going to rush to market. Like there's processes to go through to make sure that we are ready. We take a little bit longer for that initial period. So with the Find It First and the HannaList, I'm now not entering stuff on Wednesday. I'm entering stuff on Friday or Saturday for the launch next week. If it's going to MLS on the Thursday prior, we're a whole week before that. I'm entering the information at least. What I really like about HannaList is I don't now have that 72-hour clock that I had to work around before. I'm able to start entering a listing right after the listing appointment. I find that that's really helpful for me. If there's directions from the seller, like make sure you don't let the cat out or the basement refrigerator conveys, it doesn't get lost in my notes. Like I go right to HannaList and start to input that in the remarks section that day. So that way it's saved, it's in there. It makes it easier for me to time everything. If I have a full book day of showings and I'm supposed to list the house that day, I don't have to worry because it's already started. So it makes it a lot easier for me just from like a time organization standpoint. It's made it better that way, but it also for my sellers now, it gives us the time to really introduce the property to the market.
Well, that's an incredible practical point.
Yeah.
That I think that I'm glad you said because that I want people to hear that, not something that I necessarily even thought about. That's because I'm
that's
not
a
doing it
huge
every day like you are. Yeah,
benefit. Yeah.
Jennifer, what are sellers saying to you? What questions? Good, bad, and different. Like, when you're laying out that strategy and you've changed it and everything, and Dina too. We'd love to hear about that. But like, what are sellers saying?
Sellers are really excited about it because it's this link that they can kind of share with their friends and family beforehand. They love, and again, back to the dress rehearsal idea, they love that before it goes to market, they can make tweaks on, whether there's something important in the description that I left out that they want me to add, whether they didn't like that front photo, can I use a different one? They've got a little bit more input and time before it just gets launched onto Zillow, right? So they love that aspect of it, and they just like the ability to kind of make sure everybody knows about it beforehand. And I set it up and explain it during listing appointments as, it's a benefit for you as a seller, because the people who are going to contact me beforehand are going to contact me and not that random Zillow agent.
How do you handle that? We're talking a lot about Zillow here, and there's a purpose and a place for everything, and we partner with them in different ways. But that objection that a seller might have.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, because we're just naturally conditioned, right? Wait, you're telling me it's not going to be on Zillow for a week or 48 hours? What do you say to that? And Dina, come in, but like, what do you say there?
In terms of which, like their pricing or their
Well, it's just not going to be there. Wait, I'm not going to see it for 48 hours? Why? Why?
Sellers. I think sellers love Zillow. I think just the public loves Zillow. When is it going to be on Zillow? They just all get very excited about it. But I think it's just prepping them that it will get there.
Yeah.
But we're going to do, again, all of this pre-marketing. And I don't know. I feel like most of my sellers love the social media stuff.
Yeah.
They love seeing the views, the shares, all of it on there first. So it's, again, going into the building momentum. We're building it through social.
Yeah.
And then we're going to be on Zillow. And
do you follow up with them with a report like, hey, here's how many views, shares, likes, comments I've received? Or they're just probably going to log on.
Most of them are on my page looking at it, or I'll get, I'll get a text. Wow, the post is doing amazing. The video looks amazing. Thank you. Yeah.
So Dina, how about you from a practical standpoint? If an agent's watching this and they want to dive in and try HannaList and they're hearing all these great things you guys are sharing, anything practical that you can offer?
I think this might be more of a general statement, but I think in this industry period, if you're kind of like, I'm set in my ways, I'm going to do it like I always did because that was easy for me, you're not going to evolve and you're going to be kind of stuck. So I think it's just important to be open-minded, try new things. We have these incredible tools, use them, try them, stay ahead of the curve. That's always how I like to work.
That's great. All right, Dennis, back to you.
Yeah.
What would you say to the agents who are thinking about jumping into the HannaList?
I would say whether it's HannaList or, like both of these ladies shared today, sort of changing your strategy a little bit, it might be a temporary inconvenience for a permanent improvement. I mean, we are in an industry of entrepreneurs. We pride ourselves on our ability to create. So go out there and do it, because this is the future in what we're doing.
Okay. Well, this has been awesome, guys. I learned a ton today, and from you guys and the whole system. And this is a pretty cool episode we're doing here, and I think a lot of people will learn. So thank you for sharing. So giving sellers more control over how their home comes to market, giving buyers a better experience, and giving our agents the tools to manage it all smarter and more seamlessly. Find It First and HannaList aren't just features. They're a reflection of how we think about the business. More intentional, more strategic, and always focused on better outcomes for our clients. For our agents, the opportunity is simple. Start using it. Start thinking about your listings not as a single moment, but as a process you can manage and optimize. And for those looking at Howard Hanna Real Estate from the outside, this is what it looks like when a company invests and how its agents succeed. Thank you for joining me today. This was an awesome episode. Bye for now, everyone.